I returned to Stone Lake after 13 years. The sky seemed lower that morning, heavy, gray, and so still it felt as though it was waiting for something to collapse. The road into town had been swallowed by tall grass, with roots creeping over the asphalt like veins on an aging body. The forest was alive in a way that made me feel watched, every step carrying the sense that I wasn't alone. The town itself had barely changed. Still small, forgotten, pinned between Oregon trees. 2 main streets, a shuttered church, a rust-flecked sheriff's office, and the gas station where old Mac still sold lukewarm soda. Yet something new hung in the air, a tension simmering in silence. People glanced over their shoulders. Older eyes snapped shut too quickly when they saw a stranger, as if everyone shared a secret. I came to bury my brother. Elijah was found dead in a clearing 12 miles from the village. Police blamed a bear. Wild attack. But the coroner couldn't explain the deep gashes, the jagged bites, the way his bones had been torn free with almost human strength. And no one wanted to mention the signs near the body, burned marks in the soil, symbols sketched in ash. Only my grandmother spoke. She murmured, looking at me through cataract-clouded eyes. The forest claimed blood, and it always claims again. We'd grown up in a simple cabin inherited from our grandparents. Elijah never wanted to leave. He said the forest needed protecting. While I enlisted and left, he stayed, weaving himself into the community, helping hunters, guiding tourists, planting with the locals, respected, yet stubborn. Word was he'd been fighting a group that wanted to exploit a protected stretch of forest. A mining company had moved in, promising jobs, money, infrastructure. But the prospectors they brought were another kind of men, people who respected neither land nor legend. They set dynamite by the rivers, threatened residents who resisted. Elijah faced them alone. Some said he brandished guns. He vanished for 2 days before they found him. No one speaks of what truly happened in those 48 hours. I stayed in Elijah's old house. Damp wood smell, stacked books, maps scribbled with notes. He'd been digging into something. Pages on ancient rituals, hand-copied manuscripts showing men with black eyes and twisted bodies. On one, he'd scrawled, "The forest has a guardian, always has, but it only bleeds for the worthy." The next day, I hiked to the spot where they'd found him. No trail led there. Branches were thick, twisted like fingers. I walked 2 hours to reach the clearing. The air was heavy. The ground felt as if something breathed beneath it. Trees stood charred in a ring, a dead campfire at the center, and dried blood darkened the soil. The place felt sacred, or desecrated. When I knelt to touch the earth, I heard a snap, then another. Something, someone, watched from the trees. I froze. My heart pounded. No animal made that silence, no crickets, no birds, just the rustle of leaves, then a whisper. He shouldn't have come here. I spun but saw nothing, only trees. The whisper never returned. I reached town at dusk, head throbbing, certain Elijah had been right. Something needed protecting, and there was a price. Maybe it had already been paid. Stone Lake's station reeked of rust and expired disinfectant. Sheriff Doolin, broad, worn-eyed, skin like sun-cured leather, greeted me with a sigh. "I figured you wouldn't come back," he said, almost a warning. I showed him Elijah's forest map. Red X's, carefully traced routes, a black circle around Black Flame, a place locals said was where the forest dreams. Doolin exhaled smoke, studying it. Elijah was a good kid, but he got into trouble, with dangerous folks and worse things. I don't know what he found, but there wasn't much left. He produced an evidence box. This is all we recovered. Inside lay fragments of Elijah's backpack, a mangled hunting knife, and a small leather pouch branded with symbols. A chill shot through me when I touched it. Inside, fur, teeth, and something like dried flesh. An amulet. He carried this? I asked. Found it a few yards from the body. Fresh blood on it, but it wasn't his. Doolin's hollow gaze fixed on me. Elijah wasn't the first victim, just the first from here. That night I dug through archives, local papers, city hall files, forgotten reports. 3 cases stood out. A hunter vanished in '98, a university researcher in '05, a logger in 2012, each disappearing in the same area. No bodies ever recovered. Same pattern, dead campfires, signs of struggle, trees burned in a ring. Only Elijah left clues. He knew. Under loose floorboards in his closet, I found a leather-bound notebook. Frantic sketches of half-man, half-beast figures. Notes about a guardian of the earth, an ancestral spirit the Kalapuya people once invoked when the forest was threatened. The ritual, Black Root, forged a being. An offering of blood and purpose. Pain opens the way. The body becomes soil. The soil, flesh. An entry dated 2 days before he died. Read, "They're bringing excavators, going to raise everything to the river. If I don't do this, no one will. I accept." Accept what? I sought old Peter, the hermit no one approached. They claimed he spoke to trees and never left the woods. After 3 hours slogging through root-snarled mud, I reached his cabin. He waited, scarred skin, blind in one eye, bone necklace. "The brother of fire," he said before I could speak. "What did he do?" I asked. Peter eased into a seat, every bone protesting. "The ritual doesn't choose. It only accepts. Elijah bled for the forest. Now it bleeds for him." I told him of the deaths, the amulet. "That's no protection," he said. "It's a pact. Whoever wears it, summons." Closer now, I asked, "What if I finish what he started?" He raised his head. The wind died. No birds sang. "The forest never forgets, boy. You ask only because you haven't heard it scream yet." His warning cut deep. "If you take the Black Root Trail, you won't return a man." I walked back, amulet in my pocket, mind ablaze. Answers weren't in documents anymore. They lay buried in the soil, in what remained of Elijah, in that cursed clearing. That same night I returned, armed, determined, the amulet hanging from my neck, grief fueling each step. In pitch darkness, I listened, whispers curling like serpents, distant drums, breathing that wasn't mine, heavy rising from the earth. I knelt at the clearing's center, pressed the amulet into the soil and whispered, "I accept." Something snapped in the air. Silence died. So did I. I woke up in the middle of the forest, soaked in sweat and mud, with the taste of blood in my mouth. It was still night, but the stars had disappeared. A thick fog blanketed the trees, muffling sound and hiding shadows. I didn't remember falling asleep, nor how I'd left the clearing. My clothes were torn, my hands were raw, the amulet was gone, the whispering hadn't stopped. Every step echoed the feeling that I had crossed a threshold. I didn't know what had been awakened, or if it had awakened in me. The trees leaned closer now, not just because of the wind, but as if listening, inspecting me, judging. At the edge of the forest, I saw footprints, bare, large, with claw marks at the tips. I followed them against every instinct. They led to the river, where the water no longer ran clear. It flowed dark, heavy, almost thick. In the current, animals floated, rabbits, squirrels, birds, all lifeless, all intact, with eyes wide open. Not prey, sacrifices. When I looked again, the footprints were gone. Back in town, the lights were off. The power had gone out. The air carried a tension, like the moments before a storm. I knocked on doors, no answers. It was as if the village had gone silent to protect itself, or to protect me from what was to come. Only Grandma was awake. She waited on the porch, as though expecting me. Her eyes, more clouded than ever, stared past me. "You brought it back," she whispered. "What?" I asked, sitting at her feet. The old voice, the one that sleeps in the roots. Elijah heard it too. That's why he went. That's why he bled. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to deny it, but something inside me was shifting. She took my hand, tracing the red cracks forming on my wrist, like vines beneath the skin. "You've been marked," she said. "Now you belong to it. Part of the pact." I slept little that night. In my dreams, I ran through endless forest, pursued by something massive, its breath hot on my neck, but it never caught me. It didn't need to. I was already becoming like it. The next day, the bodies began to appear. First was old Mac, found at the gas station, eyes torn out, mouth filled with earth. Then, a couple who lived by the hill, torn apart as if by claws, but with no signs of struggle. And always, around the bodies, ash, a ring of burned soil, a message no one wanted to read. Sheriff Doolin locked down the town. Curfew, armed patrols. But he knew it wouldn't matter. "It's not a man doing this," he said to me in private. "It's something older, something that doesn't care about laws or bullets." I asked him what he knew. He hesitated, then opened a drawer and pulled out a box, wooden, engraved, bound in twine. "This belonged to my father," he said. "He was sheriff before me. He knew the stories. Left this for when the signs returned." Inside, photos from decades ago. Black and white, blurred. Same burned circles, same torn bodies. Notes scribbled in the margins. "When the root wakes, the flesh pays." I didn't believe it, Doolin admitted. Thought it was just a myth. But it always begins the same way. First the animals, then the forest rots, then it starts choosing people. I asked why no one had ever stopped it. His answer chilled me. "You don't stop it. You feed it. Until it sleeps again." That night, I saw Elijah. Not in a dream. He stood at the edge of the forest, barefoot, eyes black as coal, chest bare and scarred. But it was him, my brother, changed, different, radiating something beyond human. "Elijah," I stepped closer. He didn't speak, just watched me, and then he smiled, sadly, as if mourning what I'd become or what I would. Then he vanished into the trees. The forest was no longer waiting. It was advancing. By morning, trees had grown where there had been only grass. Roots cracked through roads. Ivy strangled power lines. The town was being swallowed inch by inch by something ancient and relentless. People began to leave. Some packed trucks in silence, fleeing toward the highway. Others prayed, clutching old symbols, muttering things in tongues that hadn't been spoken in years. But many stayed, too proud, too afraid, or too old to run. I stayed too, not out of courage, but because I knew it wouldn't matter. Whatever had been awakened wouldn't stop at Stone Lake. If it reached beyond the trees, if it found cities and crowds, it wouldn't just consume. It would spread. And part of it was inside me now. I didn't sleep. I wandered the forest edges, watching, listening. The whispers had changed, less distant now, almost curious. I could feel them behind my thoughts, like a second pulse. They weren't threatening. They were welcoming, inviting. That night, I returned to Elijah's notes. Among the pages, I found one that I had missed before, tucked between maps and symbols, a drawing of the creature. Not just a monster, a guardian, towering, antlered, eyes like pits of night. Not evil, but sacred. A being shaped by pain, by sacrifice, by purpose. Beneath it, Elijah had written, "We are chosen by the land to become what it needs." And on the back, in trembling ink, "The final offering must choose willingly." It wasn't about stopping the guardian. It was about becoming it. I thought of the amulet, of the ritual, of the voices. Elijah hadn't tried to kill the creature. He'd become part of it, a vessel, a guardian of the forest, and now the forest was choosing again. Me. Grandma was waiting when I stepped outside. "It's time, isn't it?" she asked. I nodded. She handed me a bundle, wrapped in cloth old as the soil itself. Inside bones, bark, ash, a knife made of obsidian, and one last item, a mask carved from black wood, painted in blood and earth. The face of the guardian. "Elijah used it," she whispered. "Now you will too." I asked her what would happen. She looked at me with such sorrow I almost faltered. "You'll walk into the forest," she said. "You'll give yourself, and if it accepts you, you'll never return." I left before sunrise. The path opened before me, not with my steps, but as if the forest moved for me. The fog parted, the trees bent. I walked for hours without hunger or thirst until I reached the clearing. The one where Elijah died. But it was different now. No ash, no blood, just silence. In the center, a hollow of roots pulsed with a faint red glow, like a beating heart. I stepped into it, raised the mask, and knelt. "I offer myself," I said. Nothing answered. Then the earth opened. Roots coiled around my limbs, not violently but with purpose. They pulled me downward, into the dark, into the soil, into the breath of the forest itself. And in that moment I saw everything. The history. The sacrifices. The blood. The guardians before me. Shadows bound to roots, to stone, to time. Each had once been a man, a woman, a protector. Their voices merged with mine, and then I felt the final breath of my old self slip away. I was no longer just a man. I was what the forest had made. I see through bark now. I breathe through the earth. My thoughts are not thoughts, but echoes, ripples across roots, tremors in the soil. The trees speak in silence. The wind carries memories. And my body is no longer just mine. It is the forest's. The first days passed without time. Day and night blended like mist on the river. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I simply was, watching, feeling, stretching through branches and veins of root. I knew the location of every animal. I could taste rain before it fell. And I could feel the fear. The intruders had returned. Machines roared in the distance, cranes, chainsaws, trucks with tires that cracked the bones of the land. The mining company had ignored warnings, deaths, omens. They brought armed men, maps, contracts. They thought the forest was weak again. They were wrong. I moved through the trees faster than thought, not walking, flowing. Every step bent the world. Birds flew in warning. Leaves blackened where I passed. I no longer had a face, but they saw it. In dreams, in flickers between branches, in shadows cast by firelight. They called me the Black God. They didn't know I had a name once. They didn't know I had a brother. The first night, I stood at the edge of their camp. They sang, drank, mocked the locals, laughed at the legends. One man urinated against a cedar over 200 years old. The tree screamed, not in sound but in memory. I felt it, and I answered. I didn't tear them apart. I made them see. Their minds snapped like twigs. Eyes rolled white. They clawed at their skin, claiming roots were growing inside them. Some fled into the woods. never to return. The rest packed their machines and tried to run. I didn't stop them. I didn't need to. The forest would. But one stayed behind. A woman, young, eyes like stone, hair short and rough. Not a miner, a biologist. She carried notebooks, not weapons. She wandered deeper, drawn by something she didn't understand. I watched her. She wasn't afraid. She spoke aloud. To herself, to me, to the trees. She called the forest beautiful, even when it bled. She left offerings, fruit, seeds, little bones arranged in patterns that felt familiar. Old ways, perhaps forgotten by humans, but not by the forest. One night, she knelt at the clearing and whispered, "I know you're here. I saw you. You were once like me. Help me protect this place. I'm not your enemy." And for the first time since I changed, I stepped forward. She didn't scream. She only cried. "I thought I was alone," she said. So did I. I reached out, just a touch. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't since Elijah died. Hope. She said her name was Anna. Her voice cut through the mist like a river through stone, soft, persistent, impossible to ignore. Every evening she returned to the clearing. She brought books, spoke her thoughts aloud, sometimes read old stories into the trees. She wasn't trying to tame the forest. She was trying to understand it. And through her, so was I. I began to remember things, not just my own memories, but those of the land, the people who had once lived here, the other guardians before me. Painful, beautiful fragments of lives given freely, surrendered in exchange for balance. Not power, not revenge, purpose. Anna carried a notebook with pages filled in haste, drawings of leaves, spore diagrams, ancient glyphs she didn't understand but copied carefully anyway. In one corner she had sketched the silhouette of a tall figure with antlers. Me. She'd seen me clearly once, and it hadn't driven her mad. That meant something. She spoke of a foundation funding research in Stone Lake, but beneath the science and environmental talk, she knew it was a front. Drilling, fracking, mineral extraction. She had tried to stop it legally. Failed. That's when she came looking for the truth, for what was buried under moss and myth. I followed her often, silently. She moved through the forest like someone being tested. She tripped. She bled. She got lost. But she never cursed the woods. When storms rose suddenly, she thanked the sky. When the wind knocked her down, she laughed. The forest began to accept her. I felt it. Trees moved out of her way. Animals watched without fleeing. Even the whispers, the ones that once howled in warning, now hummed with something else. Curiosity, maybe even affection. And me? I watched her more than I should have. I remembered what it was like to be human. The ache of longing, the warmth of memory. The unbearable beauty of small moments. Her humming, her furrowed brow as she wrote, her fingertips brushing the bark in reverence. It made the hunger harder to bear, because with every passing day, I felt the root deeper inside me, the guardian's will. It stirred at night. It whispered not in words but in urges. Defend, silence, feed, burn. One dusk, Anna found the old burial site. Stone circles, cracked totems, half-swallowed bones. Sacred ground. She knelt in awe, whispering apologies, brushing dirt gently from carved names. And as the last light faded, I stepped forward. Fully. No shadows, no mist. She turned, and she did not run. "I knew you'd come," she said. Her voice trembled, but not with fear. "You're not just a myth. You're a man who chose to stay behind." I said nothing. I had no mouth to speak. But I stepped closer. close enough that she could see what I had become. She placed her hand on my chest. "I'm not afraid of you," she whispered, "but I'm afraid of what they'll do if you stop protecting this place." And in that moment I remembered something Elijah once wrote. The guardian watches, but the forest chooses its champions. Anna wasn't the next offering. She was the next protector, not a guardian, a voice, someone who could speak for the forest outside it. That night, I left her a gift, the last page of Elijah's journal, sealed in bark, hidden beneath moss. It read, "If you found this, it means you're meant to carry the story. Tell it true. Let the world know we bled for something worth saving." Anna left the next day. She didn't look back, but I knew she'd return, not as a witness, but as a warrior. And I would be waiting. Seasons passed like breaths. The forest grew quieter, deeper. The wounds left by machines slowly healed. The old trees, once scorched, bloomed again. And beneath the soil, the roots sang low, content for now. I wandered less. The guardian does not patrol. It waits. It listens. Sometimes I would rise with the fog, stretch the limbs that once were arms, and move through places I once knew as home. The lake where Elijah and I swam, the rocks we climbed as children, the broken dock where we fished in silence. They had aged, like memories caught in bark. The cabin still stood, moss-covered, slanted, swallowed by ivy, but whole. I stood at the edge of its broken porch, not daring to enter. Inside, I could feel echoes of who I was, a name I no longer spoke, a life that belonged to someone else, someone smaller. A visitor arrived, not Anna, a boy, no older than 10. Mud on his knees, twigs in his hair, eyes wide with wonder instead of fear. He wandered too far from the trail and crossed into the clearing. I watched from the trees, unseen, unmoving. He knelt by a stump and placed something there. A toy soldier. Plastic. Worn. Missing an arm. A gift. "For you," he whispered, as if someone had told him it mattered. "So you don't get lonely." He left it there, and then he ran back the way he came. I did not follow. I kept the gift. That night the forest pulsed with warmth I hadn't felt since Elijah's heartbeat echoed in the earth. Not power, not vengeance, grace. Even now, I don't know what that boy saw. Maybe nothing, maybe everything. But he felt something. He knew something. And that was enough. Weeks later I felt her return. Anna. Her steps were firmer now, purposeful. She carried no backpack, only a necklace made of bone and bark, the same symbol Elijah had once drawn in blood. Around her followed others, photographers, reporters, scientists. She guided them carefully, showing ruins, flora, warning them where not to step. She spoke of the guardian, not as myth, but as memory. And the forest allowed it. She kept its secrets, but shared its truth. Because of her, the machines never returned. Because of her, maps were redrawn. Because of her, Stone Lake remained untouched. Because of her, I remained unseen, but not forgotten. Sometimes I wonder how long I'll remain, how long the guardian must keep watch. But the forest doesn't ask questions. It doesn't speak in futures or regrets. It only breathes. It only grows. It only remembers. And so do I.